Hi guys, this is Dr. Sadasivam once again with you, and we had posted certain videos about the US Fed policies, impact of US Fed policies, for example, balance sheet contraction, interest rate hikes, quantitative hikes, monetary tightening, etc. What impact they can have on the share market. One thing we need to remember that whatever factors we are talking about, they are all interconnected. Now, once again, if you talk about US inflation, yesterday we talked about its impact on the share market, and today we're going to talk about the kind of inflation happening on food, because wherever you go, wherever you go to the shop, whether it is wheat, maize, oil, sunflower oil, whatever is used on a daily basis in the kitchen, the price of everything is going up, and I will try to explain some of the economic impacts, and from a perspective of civil services examination, this is very important. These questions may not come directly, but some of the things, data that we learn through this video, there will be a lot of related questions in prelims, main, etc. In all places they can be used. Today, if you look at inflation is way high. For example, in US, it's somewhere around 8.5%, Europe at 7.5%, India it is 7% inflation. As a result of which, every government is hiking their interest rates as part of their monetary politics, because it's generally believed that whenever you raise the interest rates, that will be able to control the inflation. But of course, there are some negative implications in terms of growth, suffering. But in some earlier video, I have already clarified all this. It's kind of an acrobatic walk, and the government has to handle all this in a balanced manner. Now, the food prices have increased a lot, and there is an index for it, which is created by the Food and Agricultural Index, Agricultural Organization, which is Food Index, which has reached 150, right? Which means whatever was there in April 2020, 70% increase. Lot of people attribute that to the Russian-Ukraine war. Probably some part of that is because of that, but this is not something new. This trend is continuing for the last 2 years since April 2020. Russian-Ukraine war is also important for food inflation, because Russia and Ukraine jointly supply 25% of the world's wheat demand. In fact, they have exported 52 million metric tons, 25%, because the total demand for wheat in the whole world is approximately 200 million metric tons. And there is one more thing, like you have Russian wheat, Ukraine wheat, Indian wheat. US also you have a wheat which is called as hard red winter wheat. We will study that also, because which was $300 per ton, $300 per ton some months back. Today it's $500. Of course, it's a localized news and it's not important. It's not just wheat, maize, 44% increase in maize. Soya, 25% increase in soya. If you look at poultry meat, it is 100% increase, and along with that, if you look at palm oil, it is 66% increase. Everything is on the increase. But one thing that generally people do not know is this rise. In fact, the prices are going down because there has been a reduction of 20%. So to a large extent, India has exported 20 million metric tons. Generally, the global demand for rice in the world is 50 million metric tons. Generally, the world is not a rice eating, except for some Asian countries. Now, remember this data. This is extremely important. Whether it is essay questions or prelims or interviews, you can use this point, right? Now we are talking about inflation. I've put in a lot of videos about inflation. There are so many kinds. One is a demand pull inflation, cost push inflation. There's another one which is called as a imported inflation. I will explain to you what these things are, because there is one thing, a lot of people demand it, then also price increase happens. Many a times So much of demand may not be there, but still the prices are going. That is because of input cost increase. If you look at today, whether it is palladium, radium, aluminum, steel, everything goes increase. Then also you have inflation. Demand is not much, but because the input prices are more, it becomes inflation. That is cost push inflation. The third is imported inflation, which happens through your import of crude oil, etc., etc. Export, then next is called as export pull inflation, because sometimes what happens is if you export all your rice to globe, the stock here will reduce and therefore the demand will increase and therefore the inflation happens. That is why sometimes government also imposes ban on exports. Many a times it happens because of money depreciation also. Normally what happens is whenever the rupee weakens, our export competitiveness increases. IT company shares increases. Why? Because their competitiveness in the export markets gets strengthened, because their products become cheaper in the outside markets and therefore their sale increases and their profits also increases. So it is good for them but not good for the country. Likewise, whenever the rupee depreciates, your rice or wheat, anything that is exported outside, here the stock, the inventory goes down and therefore demand pull inflation, right? That is why I am saying during the start of the video that each of these are interrelated, and that is why we have to read economics. Today if you see, the stock of wheats have come down. Where? In the central wheat pool. Because government has given so much of guarantee in the distribution system. Prime Minister has a lot of schemes, very important welfare schemes of the government in the IAS, IPS. For example, we have Prime Minister's Garib Kalyan Yojana, because through the public distribution system, government is committed to people. Now, if the entire supply of wheat is exported, some of the wheat gets rotted because of summer season, production has come down because of rains or untimely rains. Last year, government had procured 45 million metric tons, but now in the Rabi marketing season, only 17% they will be able to procurement. Because farmers are not selling to the government, they are selling to all the private players, because private players are giving them more money than the minimum support prices. So farmer will sell it to whoever offers him more money, right? Along with that, one more thing I would like to tell you, that between 2015 and 2020, the food prices were not high at all. It was very, very less. Likewise, it's not just in India, guys. This is happening at the global level. I'm talking about Food and Agricultural Organization. They have something called as a food price index, the one which is 150 today. But those days it was only 98. Remember this. So once again, there is an upcycle. Prices of everything is going up. Likewise, if you remember, between 2008 and 2014, it was the same situation. There was too much of inflation in food prices. What was the reason those days? We will not get into it. But today, what is the reason? One of the main reasons for very high food prices is massive liquidity injection. I explained this yesterday also. Liquidity injection means the government is putting too much of liquidity into the market. Not just in India, all the G20 countries, they are called as loose fiscal and monetary policies. That means increase the liquidity, inject so much liquidity into the system so that the money is rotating into the economy. Of course, inflation will happen, but that's right. You're putting money in people's hands. If you remember, if you had played Monopoly or trade game when you were a child, I'm sure each one of you would have played this game. Some people call it Monopoly, some call it trade. People are buying houses, somebody is staying on rent, somebody is buying a hotel. There is a banker outside. He will not participate in the game because his objective is not to play the game and win the game. His only job is to sit outside and he will keep giving money. Because people will take that money, buy a house, buy a hotel, pay tax, transactions are happening. Some people invest in the stock market, somebody is putting up an industry. Why is that guy giving you the money? Because whatever transaction is happening here, he is getting the tax out of it. He is bothered about his tax. He is not interested in taking part in the game and winning the game. That is exactly what the central bank of every country is doing. So this is what the central bank did. They have increased the liquidity. This is also called as quantitative easing. Can also be called as quantitative tightening. That you increase the liquidity in the market so that growth happens and there is no recession, because that was what was required in the post-COVID period. Because time to time we need to change our strategies, right? For example, in the period after March 2020, after the corona stuck us after a very long time, after maybe 100 years, that was important. Liquidity in the system was important. Inflation was not that big a problem. But today inflation is a big challenge, and therefore we have to adapt a different strategy. Therefore sometimes it is quantitative easing, sometimes it is quantitative tightening, sometimes it is balance sheet expansion, balance sheet contraction, sometimes it is interest rate rising, sometimes you have to reduce the interest rates. I have already put up a video on this macroeconomic concepts. So now, to cool down the global prices, it is not the responsibility of one country, it is the responsibility of all the countries. There is a big shortage of wheat in the whole world. Russia, Ukraine supplies 25% of the world's demand. They exported 50 million metric tons against the world demand of 200 million metric tons. So the other countries have to compensate that loss. Every country can't be selfish for their own country. They have to look at the global interests also. So today if you look at wheat producing countries, Europe, US, Canada, even Argentina, Australia, these countries have to enhance their wheat production. India can't do much in it, because India's total exports, I think somewhere around 10 million metric tons against the world demand of 200 million metric tons. Where is 10 million and where is 200? So the other countries that we talked about, in rice it's a different thing. India can make a difference to the world as far as rice is concerned. But in wheat, India can't do any much. So all these countries we have talked, Europe, Australia, US, Canada, Argentina, these countries have to take the lead. There is one more thing, guys. Government has given a lot of commitment. Prime Ministers Garib Yojana, Kalyan and all that, they have given all these commitments. Who will keep up those commitments? So as far as the government is concerned, today if possible the government has to increase the minimum support prices. We have to keep in mind, otherwise we won't be able to meet the sovereign commitments. My dear friends, 200 to 250 incentive दे दिया, थोड़ा सा farmer को ये incentive दे दिया, because that is very important, because there is some planning involved, and only if they do something right now, the farmers will be able to consider that and plant wheat in the planting season. This is not a coffee where you heat the milk and coffee is ready, because there is a long gestation. You will put the seed, then take out the weeds, take care of it, garden, water, all that. The gestation period is around 7-8 months. Therefore, planning is extremely important as far as wheat self-sufficiency is concerned. But many a times the government stops, bans the export of wheat. These are all quick fix solutions. Everybody knows that if you ban the export, but that's not what we should be doing, because by banning, you are shirking yourself from the global responsibility. Because Russia and Ukraine, they were supplying 25% of wheat to the world market, and therefore countries shouldn't be selfish. They have to keep in mind the world demand also, because it's a moral responsibility of responsible countries. It's not that everything the countries do is always from a selfish perspective. It applies to us also. So export ban is not a solution. But sometimes in IAS they will ask essay questions like this: the export ban should happen or not? If you just say yes, should not happen, you will get 0 mark. You have to substantiate data. Why it should happen? Why not it should? What is inflation? What is the effect of it? How many countries are there? Some data here and there. Only if you do that, you will become an IAS officer. Therefore, not one question. Daily basis, you have to read 10 or 50 issues. Not one day. For 1 year, if you do that, You need to have at least 15,000 such points, a clear cut idea of 15,000 different issues. Only if you have that, you will be able to write 5 or 6 questions which are asked in the essay questions. So passing IAS is not easy. So on a daily basis, watch these kind of videos every day. Do hard work, because passing IAS or IPS is not very easy. So all these are free of cost. Subscribe to the channel. Press the notification bell. Every day you will get this kind of articles. When you listen to it, you will get some more points in your mind. Subconsciously, you will be able to do well in the examinations, and that's the objective. Okay guys, this is Dr. Sadasivam signing off till we meet again. Bye bye. Jai Hind.